But this is something crazy because if Dame leaves Portland, I truly believe that we're not going to see someone like an NBA player besides Steph Curry really stay with one team in his career. Hello and welcome to the Monday, June 28th edition of the TV on Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're all having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. And for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. Help defeat the algorithm, help get the ratings up, and let more people see the podcast. And as for my Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean listeners, just continue to show your support in any way possible. That would be highly appreciated. I have an awesome show lineup for you guys today. I'm going to talk about all the games that happened basically from Thursday night onwards to the end of the weekend. I'm going to be talking about all those games. And also, I'm going to be talking about quite a number of coaches that got hired that I didn't really talk about in my last episode. I'm going to get to all of them here and kind of give my quick, 2 cents on what I think about these hirings. Pretty basic episode today. Going to be a really good one because there's a lot to talk about with these two series. But if you do enjoy this episode and want to see more, let more people see it, just share this, like the video, share the podcast, whatever you need to do. I really do appreciate all of you. Like I mentioned before, thank you for 3,000 downloads on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And we're only 2 subscribers away from 40 subs on YouTube. So, yeah, hit the subscription button so you can continue to support the channel. And I'm going to continue to come out with some more NBA content throughout the duration of this playoffs. But yeah, since that is out the way, let's get right into the first topic. And we got to talk about the Bucks-Hawks series. I'm going to quickly go through Game 2, then going to be talking extensively about Game 3. Let's talk about Game 2 first. The Bucks win Game 2 against the Atlanta Hawks to tie the series up at 1 apiece, 125-91. This game, plain and simple, the Hawks just played horrible. They just got outplayed. No one on that team scored over 15 points. Trey is the only one who scored 15. And it was just a rough day for them. I mean, I can read out some stats. I mean, Giannis had 25, 9, and 6. Drew Holiday with 22 and 7. But that didn't really matter because this game was over very, very quickly. This whole game just turned on its head in the second quarter where the Hawks just played absolutely horribly. They couldn't stop anything the Bucks were doing. And they got outscored that quarter 43-17. It was just an absolute bloodbath. There are a lot of things you can point to, but I think the biggest reason why the Hawks just lost this game is that Trae Young just did not look right in the first half. And you know how he's able to, hit the 3 ball, get into the paint, get whatever he wants against his Bucks team usually. Not that game. And the Bucks forced 8 first half turnovers on Trae Young alone. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. The Bucks weren't going to give up that lead. I think the biggest lead in the game that they had was 41. Yeah, 41 was the biggest lead that the Bucks had in the game. It was just complete domination, plain and simple. I think after the second quarter, I think the Hawks was you know what, this isn't our day. They're gonna try to come back, but honestly, the Bucks had all the confidence in the world, and they're able to pull out the win. Good win for them. There's not really much to analyze here. I mean, Giannis and Drew Holiday played well again, coming off the Game 1 loss. But the Hawks just did not look right. I can attribute that to the Bucks defense for sure. But Trae Young sets the tone for the team, and he did not set the tone right and the start of the game. So, good one for the Bucks. But now going on to Game 3, there is a lot to dissect here. But the Bucks did win again, 113-102. I thought this was a really good game throughout. If we just look at the top scorers on the Milwaukee side, you had Giannis playing absolutely fantastic once again. 33 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. Chris Middleton was a star in the fourth quarter, and we'll get into that later. 38, 11, and 7. On the Hawks side of things, you got Trey scoring 35 points, dishing out 4 assists. We're going to talk about the injury as well. And then Daniel Gallinari off the bench, 18 points. John Collins, 13 points in his limited minutes. I think it was like a very like well fought out game, but it just got away from the Hawks in the fourth quarter. But there's a lot of reasons why the Hawks actually just gave up that lead, because we're gonna start off just like in the beginning of the game. It was just a really fun game to watch throughout. The biggest story, I guess, of the first half was that the Hawks, the Bucks always kept it close. They always kept it close. The Hawks, I think, got to a 15-point lead at one point, but that was very, very early in the game. But the Bucks bounced back and they kept it close throughout. But in the first three quarters, they always got to like that 2-point deficit, 3-point deficit, but they couldn't hit that extra bucket to either tie the game or take the lead. And the Hawks always had some form of counterpunch, whether it was a Trae Young assist, Trae Young three, Trae Young layup, even a John Collins mid-range jumper. I mean, he played pretty well in this game, even though I only said he scored 13 points. His jumper was absolute money in this game, but the only thing was, I mean, he couldn't stay on the court because of foul trouble. But the Hawks always had a response, and I think that's what made this like a really good game throughout. But there was a turning point in this game, and that came at the end of the third quarter, where Trae Young kind of like not like a step back on a three, but what happened was, I guess he was like kind of walking backwards, and he did not see the ref on the sideline. He stepped on his foot, and he tweaked his right ankle. He had to get pulled out from the game, went to the locker room, and he really didn't come back until I think like a few minutes into the fourth quarter. But that wasn't really the turning point of the injury like itself, because at the time that Trae Young was out, they actually played okay, the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, Lou Williams had to be the primary ball handler, but he was doing his thing. He was like getting some buckets. He was like dishing out some assists. The Hawks had a lead when Trae Young came back on the court. Even players like Onyeka and Kongwu, who played a short stretch there, but he played really, really good defense on Giannis. I mean, he's not the strongest guy in the world, but this guy was drafted last year due to his length and his defensive potential. And he showed some of that in this game. I mean, he was just being big. He was being physical with Giannis and then using his length to kind of bother shots he was taking. He forced a jump ball. He played well there. But the game just shifted when Trae Young got back on the court. And you could tell he just wasn't right. He wasn't taking the ball up every single possession. Some offensive possessions, he was just standing in the corner. He just did not look right whatsoever. I mean, he was on the court, and then like he wasn't like this. He didn't have the same explosiveness. You could see him grimacing every time he had to like, run up and down the court, and you just knew that the Hawks, without like their leader kind of exhibiting the same energy that he did in the first three quarters, it was going to be a tough time for them. Especially when you're going up against Giannis, who played very well in the first three quarters, kept the Bucks close and it kept them in striking distance. But in the fourth quarter, it was Chris Middleton. It was just Chris Middleton playing absolutely fantastic. 20 of his 38 points in that fourth quarter. He was just on fire. He was on fire to the point where he himself outscored the entire Atlanta Hawks team in that fourth quarter, outscoring them 20-17. I mean, he was hitting shots from the mid-range. He was hitting shots from the three. Even after the game, Giannis was asked about Chris Middleton's play, and he was talking about that possession where he was dribbling the ball up the court, and Middleton was like asking for the ball in the post, like even before Giannis crossed half court. So Giannis passes to Connaughton, passes to Middleton, and he basically hit like a step-back mid-range jumper from behind the backboard. And you could just tell, like, Middleton was just on one that day, and I've talked about his inconsistencies in the past. I say that sometimes he can come out with like a 30-plus point game and then drop like a 12 or 13-point game the next game, and that inconsistency is kind of hurting the Bucks in some aspects. But today, you know, they got a good Middleton game, and he was the biggest reason why they were able to pull away in that fourth quarter. And I think the way that the Bucks won this game and is the way I think they're going to win close games going forward into this playoffs. Giannis being an absolute beast for three quarters. This guy was getting dunks. He was getting everything he wanted on this Atlanta Hawks defense. He just dominated for three quarters. But when it comes late, you need Chris Middleton to hit those shots. They made him a max contract guy for a reason. He's able to hit these shots on a consistent, like in bunches, as seen in this game. But the consistency is the problem here with Chris Middleton. I mean, even if you look at like just some games of the series, I mean, game one, this guy just did not play well. I think he had like 15 or 16 points, 15 points, but 6 for 23 shooting, 0 for 9 from 3. He's going to give you some of those but you know that his scoring ability is there, a la last game. But they just need to get that from him on a consistent basis. And I'm not talking, 20 points in the fourth quarter, something like that, but they need to rely on him to get shots open, to create his own shot, hit those jumpers, just so you don't have to give the ball to Giannis every single possession. And I think this is a great way. They won this game. Obviously, the Hawks were. It was highly unfortunate that they weren't able to close this out. That injury definitely hurt them. And for the guys that are blaming the ref on the injury, just get out of here, man. He was where he was supposed to be. Trae Young literally took 2 or 3 steps back after he attempted the shot, or he attempted the pass, and then he stepped on the ref's foot. It was just an accident, complete accident. No one's at fault here. It was just an unfortunate circumstance. But Trae Young still had a good game, 35-4. This guy was absolutely cooking in those first 3 quarters. But that ankle was definitely bothering him after the game. And he was asked, after the game, how is he feeling? He said it feels sore. It's really frustrating to have to deal with this. But he's getting an MRI tomorrow, so hopefully it's not as bad as it seems. But yeah, just congratulations on the Bucks for getting the series, for getting this game. Now they're 2-1 up in the series and staying at the lineup for Game 4. It's really gonna depend on how Trae Young, not his availability, but how healthy he is. If that ankle is still bothering him come Tuesday night, it could be another long day for the Hawks, especially because Bogdan Bogdanovic has not been great ever since he got that little injury in the Nets in the 76ers series. I don't think he scored over 10 points in 6 or 7 games now, which has been definitely frustrating for Hawks fans to watch. But they're going to need to get some sort of offense beside Trae Young, because he is putting a lot of pressure on himself to not just create for himself, but create for others. And you just need someone to step up. Gallinari had 18 points yesterday. That was pretty cool. John Collins needs to just stay on the court and avoid foul trouble. Which is tough because he's guarding Giannis. But they need other guys to step up, whether Trae Young is hurt or not. But I still think the Hawks can get one more game. But with the way the Bucks are playing right now, the way that the Hawks just cannot stop Giannis, it's gonna be absolutely tough for them to beat this Bucks team. It's going to be very interesting to see kind of what type of Hawks team we see come Game 4. More importantly, what type of Trae Young. And I think that's going to be the biggest determining factor in terms with the series. But if you're the Bucks, stick with this formula. Get Giannis a lot of paint touches. I know he was 1 for 2 from 3, but anytime Giannis is shooting honestly 1 or 2 threes, I think it's just a W, because that means he's dominating in the paint. And man, Chris Middleton just gets some consistency, and I think the Bucks can actually take the series pretty good. Now we move on to the Western Conference Final Series. This Phoenix Suns taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. Let's talk Game 3. The Clippers cut the series deficit to 2-1 after they beat the Suns 106-92. This is the game that CP3 came back, but yeah, he looked he looked pretty rough in that game. Same thing with Devin Booker, who played in a face mask for the first time, and you could tell that he just wasn't used to it, and he was, and this is where he could just tell that he was getting frustrated with Pat Bev's defense, because in that game, DeAndre Ayton played alright, 18 points, 9 rebounds, but Chris Paul and Devin Booker, although combined for 15 points and 17 assists, both combined for 30 points and 17 assists, went 10 for 40 shooting just from the field, which is definitely not the recipe for success for the Suns team. And they weren't able to pull out this win because their guys just couldn't produce enough offense. And I think the biggest factor, kind of my biggest takeaway from this game is seeing how Devin Booker is reacting to the physicality of the playoffs. Most importantly, Patrick Beverley. Ever since he was put on Devin Booker in Game 2, you could tell that Devin Booker's getting frustrated. Devin Booker's had a couple technical fouls in this series already. And a lot of that has to do with Patrick Beverley getting to his head. Sure, Patrick Beverley does a lot of stupid stuff, whether it's the headbutt to the nose, whether it's stupid fouls. Some of the fouls that Patrick Beverley kind of commits really does baffle me. But if he's holding Devin Booker to the type of shooting performances he's having right now, I guess you'll take it. I guess, I mean, at this point, I mean, if he's slowing down Booker in any way possible, I would take it too. And I think Patrick Beverly at least is doing his part there, trying to keep himself on the court. On the Clippers side of things, I do not want to discount them because they played really well. Reggie Jackson, another great performance, 23 points, 9 for 17 shooting, hitting big shots in the third and fourth quarter to kind of halt any momentum that the Suns had. Paul George, 27 points, although on 26 shots, still played pretty decent in this game. Not in the fourth quarter, though, like 0 for 4 and stuff like that. That was pretty ugly. But I think the biggest thing for the Clippers in this game was Vika Zubac actually not dominating, but handling Aiden very well. He kept him off the boards. He kind of got Aiden not in his element. And Zubac played very well, 15 points, 16 rebounds. But most importantly, he got to the free throw line 10 times and hit 9 of them, which put a lot of pressure on the Suns' interior. But yeah, that was a good win for the LA Clippers. It's definitely good. It was gonna definitely be tough for the Suns to win with Booker and Chris Paul being playing this way. So I think as the Suns move on to Game 4, they're probably thinking, you know what, our backcourt is not going to play that bad again. I think they are still fine. So moving on to Game 4, the Suns did pick up a victory, but oh boy, that was ugly. 84 to 80 was the final score in this one. I mean, this is like the second time in these NBA playoffs that you just had one of these games where you're like, these are some of the best basketball players in the world, and they cannot hit just like the simplest jumpers. And it was just mind-blowing to me because this gave me the same vibes as Game 3 of the Bucks-Nets series in the second round, where the final score was 86 to 83 Milwaukee. I think that was a game where Drew Holiday hit a layup to as basically the game winner. And this is the same thing here because there was I think the score was like 71 to 70 for like 5 or 6 whole minutes in this game. Like, oh goodness gracious, that's like some of the worst basketball I've seen. But if you're a championship caliber team like the Suns are trying to prove that they need to win games at any cost. And this was a clear example of that because this game was ugly, but they were still able to pull out this win. Even though it was still not a great game from the backcourt. I mean, 4 for 44 shooting, but I think as like a collective, they still played better. They still got 43 points, which is better than 30. So that was good from their backcourt. But I think their biggest factor in winning Game 4 was not the play of their backcourt, but DeAndre Ayton. He did not he played decent in Game 3, but he knew he could have played better, and he took full advantage of that in Game 4. There were a lot of missed shots, and for the most part, DeAndre Ayton was corralling them up, whether it was on the offensive glass or the defensive glass. 19 points, 22 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks. I mean, some of those blocks that Ayton was rejecting was just fantastic. Was just absolutely fantastic. Great athleticism, great positioning. He just played very well. And they needed that inside presence either to get him just second chance opportunities or just closing out defensive possessions because this game was about, missed shots, and if you can keep the ball keep the ball through offensive rebounding, it was massive, and the Suns did that very well. They out rebounded the Clippers 59 to 51, and I think that was the biggest reason why they were able to win this game. Although Zubac still had a pretty good game, 13 points, 14 rebounds, Aiden outplayed him here, and I think that was massive in the Suns' win. In terms of the Clippers, no one really stepped up in a massive way. Even like Paul George and Patrick Beverly, they had 20 plus points, but they also had 20 plus attempts. I mean, they just couldn't hit shots as well. Terrence Mann came on 12 points, 4 rebounds, and like I mentioned, Zubac had 13 and 14. But man, that offense was ugly for the Clippers, and there were so many points in this game, especially in that fourth quarter, where they got it to 1. They got it to a 1-point game, but they just couldn't hit a shot to either, just to give them the lead. They had so many opportunities, but they just kept bricking them. And a lot of people want to blame the refs on the Clippers' loss, and there are definitely some questionable calls in this one. But at the end of the day, the Clippers had their opportunities, and they really just could not convert. But speaking of the refs, and I do not want to go into this too much, but again, the final 65 seconds of this game took 22 minutes to complete. Yes, I talked about how in game 2, 33 minutes to complete the final 2 minutes. This was the final 65 seconds, and it took them 22 minutes. Again, unacceptable. There was just so many to review. They was trying to figure out like foul calls and stuff like that. It was just not like fun basketball to watch. And look, the refs got some of them wrong. I mean, I was surprised that the refs didn't even review that campaign, loose ball, because it looked like campaign by definition of the rule, the ball was off him, but the refs refused to review it, which is really really strange to me. I mean, also that Chris Paul, like where he got fouled, where I think he was getting double teamed and then got fouled. Was that a travel? Maybe. I didn't think there was enough contact to suggest that it was an intentional foul yet. They did, they did get kind of screwed in those two instances. But again, they just couldn't get their offense going. And it's kind of like, I mean, they didn't have a single lead in this game for a reason. The Suns had had most of the momentum, and whenever the Clippers kind of got it like right where they want them, they just couldn't get themselves over the top. Because the Suns had a 16-point lead, and they really did cut it down to a reasonable deficit, but the Clippers just couldn't get put over the top. And these are just situations where you're like, man, they missed Kawhi bad, because he would have been able to either get to the line a couple times or even just hit his patented mid-range jumper to even get him like just the ball, like at least the scoreboard ticking. And there wasn't going to be a lot of points I think Kawhi in this game would have helped with, because it was just a rough game for both teams. But he would have, like, these are like in these ugly games, you want someone that can get you an easy bucket, and Kawhi could do that. But yeah, this was a very, very, very good game. After the game, DeAndre Ayton had all the praise to Chris Paul and said that, look, CP3 has just been the best thing that's happened to his career. He's like pushed him like harder than anyone has before, and he's having his best season, and he's having a massive impact on his playoffs. And Ayton is very humble in saying that, look, Chris Paul is a big part of that, and he can't thank him enough. CP3 basically responded to that in a press conference saying, look, I'm just trying to get him some money for the next season. And to be honest, the way that Ayton's playing and like his potential, and his like future potential, I don't see him not getting a max contract. I really don't. He's been absolutely fantastic, and I still believe he is the like biggest reason why the Suns aren't like the position they are right now, because they wasn't gonna win Game 4 without his interior presence, and he played very very well. But what about the next game? Can the Clippers stay in this? Maybe, but I do think that the Suns, it's their opportunity to advance to the first finals ever since the Charles Barkley finals, where I think they faced Michael Jordan and the Bulls. They want to win this at home. They want to win it in front of their fans, and the Suns are going to be locked and loaded. I think they're going to be extremely prepared to play this Game 5. So it's about the Clippers hitting shots. And I didn't even mention this like in the I forgot to mention this earlier. Like they still had chances, I think, in the final like 7 or 8 seconds. But like Paul George missed a free throw, which was tough. He did get the offensive rebound though, so that kind of redeemed himself for that. And then DeMarcus Cousins, oh my gosh, I think he had his first free throw to cut it to 2-point game, but it was like 4 seconds left, and all he had to do, and he was trying to do the thing that Paul George did, where throw it off the rim, and then hopefully they can gather the offensive rebound and just put it back up. But DeMarcus Cousins did that, attempted that horribly. He just hit the backboard, and then he got called for a free throw violation. And oh my goodness, that was ugly. But going back to like the final thoughts. But the Clippers need to be absolutely focused on this one. Kawhi Leonard is already ruled out for this one, so they're basically saying he's out for the series. But they're just taking on a game-to-game basis. But they need to be extremely focused and just get their offense going. Because in this game, like in Game 5, like I mentioned, the Suns will be ultra prepared. They want to win this in front of their fans. They want to get to their first finals. Chris Paul is more motivated than ever to get to his first finals. They need to hit on all cylinders. And although I think it's going to be extremely tough, the Clips have shown that they have they've shown resilience throughout this playoffs. So I think that there is a small chance it happens. But if I had to pick, I think this series is done in 5. Like I said, the Suns are back home. They're going to feed off that energy from the crowd, who has been great the entire playoffs. I think the Suns take it, and they're going to be advancing to their first NBA Finals since the 90s, which is pretty crazy. Good for them. Good for them. D-Book, like I said, I think he just has to kind of like fight through the adversity, especially the pressure from Pat Bev, Chris Paul, being one game away from his first finals. Hopefully that happens. They're just a fun team to root for. Let's see if they're going to be able to close it out tonight. If you're listening to this today's release, it's actually going to happen tonight. But yeah, those are my thoughts on both playoff series. Let me know down below what you guys think. Just like anything about the Bucks, the Hawks, just anything from what I discussed. But before we head out for today's episode, I do have to talk about these coaching hires because there have been like 4 coaching spots that have been filled. I didn't even talk about some of the ones from last week on the episode with Joe, which is you should definitely go check out the last video on this channel. Also the last episode of the pod. But yeah, I want to be kind of just talking about like some of these news that happened with these coaches and giving my little bit of knowledge and how I think this is going to go. But yeah, let's start in Indiana. Rick Carlisle. Yes, Rick Carlisle, former Mavs coach, returns to Indiana on a 4-year, $29 million deal. He was an assistant for the Pacers between 97 to 2000. Then started his head coaching career with the Pistons before returning to the Pacers in 2003. And then coached there for 4 years. He was like coaching that era with like Jermaine O'Neal, Jamal Tinsley, that team. And they were actually pretty solid. But he ended up going to the Mavs and becoming, I believe, one of the longest tenured coaches in Mavs history, if not the longest. And now he's back with the Pacers, 4 years, $29 million deal. I think this is a good hire. I mean, this is someone who is very well respected around the league. The Pacers tried getting, modern and getting someone from Nick Nurse's coaching tree and Nate Bjorkgren. That clearly didn't work out because they fired him after 1 year. He had a lot of tension with the front office and the players. But now they bring in someone who is cool, calm, and collected, is a championship-winning coach. I think it's going to be really good for this Pacer team. I still think they need to make some changes within their roster. But Rick Carlisle is a really good coach, and I think that he can at least, I wouldn't say guarantee the Pacers a playoff spot, but they're going to be competing, and I think it's going to be a lot better results than what happened this year. Like I said, he's extremely well respected, and I think, he's going to do a solid job there in Indiana. They still have talent there on Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner. Whatever changes they make, I still think they're going to have a pretty good roster. They also, I think, have like the 13th or 14th pick or something like that, so that could help the team as well. But let's see. I'm very excited for this hire. Hopefully, the Pacers can get back to at least, competing for home court advantage in the playoffs. Speaking of the Dallas Mavericks, though, they found their coach as well. They got Jason Kidd. They brought him in to be the next head coach for the team. No news on how long it's going to be or how much it is, but he is now the head coach for the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, he had a coaching gig with the Brooklyn Nets. He was like the coach of the team where after they traded for Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, they may have passed the first round, but they didn't really do much after that. And then he was also the Milwaukee Bucks coach before they hired Budenholzer. Some questionable tactics for sure for Steve Nash. Obviously, with the fouling situations back in the day, fouling when they're when they're ahead and stuff, which was really weird. But now he's getting his second chance at head coaching, his third chance at head coaching with the Dallas Mavericks. And the thing is, this guy is part of that championship-winning Dallas team in 2011 with Dirk there. And I think what I'm most interested at with this hire is just kind of how his relationship with Luka would go. Obviously, Giannis loved him. I think when Jason Kidd got fired, Giannis talked about how he was really sad for him to go, that he developed a really good relationship with Jason Kidd. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, if Jason Kidd developed a great relationship with Giannis, hopefully he can get through to Luka. Mark Cuban also said that they're looking to making some major changes to this roster, including getting a second scorer for Luka. So yeah, I think this is going to be definitely an interesting hire. I think Luka would definitely. I think it would be definitely like a hopefully a better relationship because it is a former NBA player, someone that these players can relate to. And yeah, let's see what Jason Kidd can do. They were one game away from taking down the Clippers, so maybe a coaching change could help. Obviously, they're gonna make some roster changes, but the Dallas Mavericks are looking to make like an immediate impact, maybe like progressing possibly to a conference finals next year. So, is there pressure on Jason Kidd? Definitely, but um, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see who what's gonna happen with that. They also brought in one of the executives of Nike to be their new general manager. So major changes happening in Dallas, including getting Jason Kidd. So I think it's going to be a solid hire, but just watch out for the relationship between him and Doncic. I think that's going to be the biggest thing to look at. Another coaching hire happened with I think Ime or Udoka. He was hired by the Boston Celtics. Another move made by Brad Stevens as the president of basketball operations. He brings in Ime Udoka, and now he is going to be the head coach for Boston. He was been an assistant for the San Antonio Spurs for the longest time. Was a assistant for the Philadelphia 76ers for 1 or 2 years. And then currently this year he was also on the Brooklyn Nets sideline as one of the assistants to Steve Nash. He's always been in like coaching rumors in terms of like hiring new coaches. It's been like almost 10 years of him being an assistant, and he's finally gone on. And apparently, the star players of Boston was the ones who were really pushing for him to get hired, because Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart were all part of that Team USA FIBA team. I think a couple years back, where Ime Udoka was an assistant coach there underneath Popovich, and they really wanted him to come to the team. I think that's a good sign for him. He already has the backing of the star players, so hopefully things go well for him. Again, he was a former player as well, playing for teams like the Knicks, the Spurs. I think he was on like one of the Spurs teams that won a championship as well. So being in again someone with a not like a player's mentality with the coaching expertise, I think could be really good for this Boston team. Someone that the Boston at least players will listen to, and hopefully like he can turn this team around, because this year was kind of rough, obviously with the injuries with the COVID stuff, and them getting eliminated in the first round. But they got the talent still in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They're definitely going to make some moves to improve their roster. They brought back Al Horford. I think this team can be definitely fighting for home court next year, and I wouldn't say competing for a championship, but getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals if things go well. So I like this hire. I'm glad that Udoka is getting his first head coaching gig with a pretty good team. But other things that happened, like relating to this news, I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, there was a Jay Williams tweet like after Udoka was hired. It was basically saying, congrats to Udoka. He's paid his dues as an assistant for the longest time, and he was glad that he was getting his first head coaching gig. But then he went on to say that congratulations to Udoka for being the first black coach in Celtics history. Yes, that came from the official Jay Williams Twitter account. Obviously, if you don't know Jay Williams, I think he's on the bump or on the jump in the morning. It's an NBA show, and he tweeted this, and then everyone's like, "Are you have to be joking?" Bill Russell, Casey Jones, Doc Rivers, just to name a few. How did this how did he tweet this and not know any of this? Especially because Bill Russell was the first ever black coach in the NBA, and he coached the Celtics. I mean, it's crazy. Then after he went on and said, "Oh, my account was hacked. I changed my password and stuff. It should be good." And then he deleted a tweet. It was just funny, man. I just found that really funny. Obviously, he wasn't. But I just found that really, really funny in terms of something that was related to the situation. Then the final head coaching hire had to do with the Portland Trail Blazers, and this was announced last night. I think it was even like during the Bucks Hawks game. Chauncey Billups signs a 5-year deal to become the Portland Trail Blazer head coach. Very, 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 very nice for him. I mean, again, someone who was a former NBA player, has been assistant coach for for one team, which is the LA Clippers, and now is finally getting his shot to be the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. just it's good to have just like a player's voice in the room. I mean, he last played for the Detroit Pistons back in 2014. He was on ESPN as an analyst, and now he's getting his first chance as a head coach. But other news came out of this like as well. I mean, as this Billups news was coming out, Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports reported that all this like head coaching backlash and kind of the lack of building a championship around Damian Lillard has come to the point where it's very likely that Damian Lillard may request a trade, which is crazy. And I think I should probably think of future destinations on the next podcast. But this is something crazy because if Dame leaves Portland, I truly believe that we're not going to see someone like an NBA player besides Steph Curry really stay with one team in his career. And obviously the Portland Trail Blazers haven't built a championship caliber team around him, and so I don't blame him for leaving. But it's just weird that like it's really gotten to this point. And obviously you heard the news earlier, like they were trying to get Jason Kidd, and then he took his name out the running because he didn't feel comfortable that Damian Lillard was kind of seeking him to be the head coach and stuff like that. So yeah, this could get really crazy over the next couple weeks, months, especially going into the offseason. Like, what's going to happen with Dame? Is he going to stay and then the Portland situation is going to change around him? Or are they just going to completely blow it up and actually trade Damian Lillard? That's going to be interesting to see. Something to also note is that on Twitter, Dame liked to tweet saying, look, people are going to make stuff up all the time and don't believe what they're saying. So maybe that's just Dame's way of confirming that that report just isn't true. But a lot of other reporters saying, I know this is like, this seems like real, like it wasn't real, but Chris Haynes knows his stuff. So someone's lying. It's probably the media, but let's see what's gonna happen because these next few months for the Trailblazers organization is gonna be very, very interesting. But yeah, those are the head coaching hires. Let me know down below what you guys think. Did you like the coaching hires? Did you not like them? And let me know down below. Also, just leave your thoughts on anything that we talked about from the playoff series. But I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you are on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some awesome content. Hopefully I can get a guest on for Friday's show, which we'll be releasing later on this week. I think that's going to be a really good one. There's probably going to be a lot more NBA basketball to talk about. And yeah, just look out for some more content on the YouTube on my Instagram page. I might be on a show on tonight, so I'm gonna definitely be sharing it on my social media. So definitely go check that out. But yeah, really fun episode. Thank you guys for all the support again. Thank you for 3,000 downloads on the podcast, and also subscribe if you can. We're only 2 subscribers away from 40 subs. But I think this is going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for all the support. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV signing out. Take it easy, guys.